Hey buddies, welcome to another summer long form here on Barn Burner presented by Bet365. Whatever the game, it's never ordinary with Bet365. And today we dive into an incredibly evolving and changing hockey landscape. If you were a junior age player, even a year ago, your options and your route you would be developing on was pretty clear. If you played major junior and you were in the CHL, you were ineligible to play college hockey. That one little tweak has changed, and as a result, the developmental landscape for young hockey players is incredibly different. Today, we're going to check in with three different head coaches to see what they're seeing with the changes in hockey eligibility. We'll check in with Luke Strand, the head coach of the Minnesota State Hockey Club. Also, Fred Harbinson, the head coach and general manager, president of the Penticton Vees. They were a junior A team grooming kids for college and have now moved to the WHL for this upcoming season. Also, we'll check in with Bert Gilling, the head coach of the Mount Royal University Cougars. A lot changing, landscape shifting. These three men are right in the thick of it. Let's see what they're learning about the new rules around developing young hockey players in North America. Our first guest is the head coach of the Minnesota State Mankato NCAA Hockey Club. It is Luke Strand, former Flames assistant of the Abbotsford Heat. Luke, thanks for joining us. Great to see you. How are you, buddy?
I love it. It's all is well here. Things are getting rolling. It's just good. Good to have the guys back. See the whites of their eyes is always a special time.
Yeah, fair enough. Another year coming. This show, we're going to be chatting with Fred Harbinson from the Penticton Vees, who obviously had a long time in junior A, college prior to that at St. Cloud, and now off to the WHL with their expansion into Penticton. And also we'll chat with Bert Gilling, who's going to join us from the Mount Royal Cougars to just sort of figure out what's changed with the eligibility rules. First off, though, tell us about your program, tell us about the team, and how long you've been there as the skipper behind the bench.
Yeah, it's good. It's year 3 here. I had won a title in USHL in 22. Then we went to Ohio State as assistant coach. We lost out in the NCAA tournament there. Opportunity became about here, and the fit was right back in the footprint of my life. So Mankato is south of Minneapolis by about an hour. Okay. Perfect little town, college town, 15,000 students, sold out barn. A great setup for a young man to develop, not only as a player, but as a person, and everything under one roof. It's a one-stop shop. It's about as pro as you can get day to day around here with development wise. And I think big picture for us, taking a huge pride in making people's careers last longer. So if we can get them to the American League so they can stretch in the NHL, great. If they can go directly to the NHL, wonderful. If they got to go to Europe for a first stop, that's a good stop too.
Okay. So I got a couple of Flames related questions for at the end, but let's start with the last 12 months. I don't know when exactly the whispers started about eligibility rules, but I suppose, the portal was a new thing, and NIL, I guess money or rights for players was a big thing. And I think that probably led us to the path where it's like, well, hey, why? Because a kid makes a couple $100 a month playing junior hockey in Canada. Can you not play NCAA? You would have seen decades of the old version, and we're very, very early into a new set of rules that I think of a lot of people asking questions, hence the show today. So what was the last year like? And did you get a sense that this was inevitable, or was it always going to be like, we'll see?
Yeah, I mean, kind of a fire hose. The idea that, especially here, I'll use us as an example. Like, you take over a program, you're trying to get ahead in recruiting, because when the old crew, when they moved on, you had some cupboards to fill. So we got ahead of that. And then the dynamic changes where the CHL kids become eligible. The portal becomes a larger opportunity for players to leave. Not only if a coach left, you could jump in the portal, meaning you could switch schools without penalty. Now you can switch schools without penalty with or without a coach leaving, just out of happiness or situation, whatever that may be for a young man and a family and an agent. So that part has come across the board for us. It definitely changes the dynamic. You can probably, I would consider, reload a little bit quicker, maybe through the portal. A lot of times there's players leaving places for opportunity that maybe they didn't get somewhere else. And then I think you've got to be really good in decision making that is still going to be the right fit when they come here. Just because it didn't work somewhere else doesn't mean it wouldn't fit here, or vice versa. Someone coming in or out. So you got to do your homework. I think there's a a really good track and trend of a kid. You probably saw some trends through their junior career into early college. Does that make sense for your lineup at your timing? Can you balance some classes maybe with the portal? Mm-hmm. But then the CHL is a whole different animal because now you opened up a pool of players that never existed before, that had chosen a path of non-college that are now eligible to go to college, plus or minus some stipulations.
Right. Okay. So when was it like, okay, this is happening. We got to get as many eyeballs as we can up into Canada, or maybe even you as the head coach be like, I got to get my butt up to Canada to start looking at some of these kids. And I suppose even like Pacific Northwest, and there's some OHL teams that are in the States as well. But like all of a sudden this huge player pool that, you might have some intel on, but you're not recruiting. All of a sudden, like this is going to become available.
Yeah. I think you start to, it was probably last fall we dug into making sure, this spring prior. So the spring of 4.
Yeah.
Would have been a kind of heads up this could be happening. So you dug in, you did homework, you saw some players, you saw some who was in that pool of players who would be coming out at this time as overagers, because I think at first the thought was like, okay, these guys will stay, they'll play through their 20 or 19 minimally, and then they'll leave. And then now it's turned into guys are jumping out earlier than that, coming to college. And I don't know. It's a path for everyone to choose. You can do scouting is one thing. Evaluating talent, that's a whole business in itself. Mm-hmm. Making sure that the right guy for the right reason at the right time, that's the actual business, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely fair. And look, we've seen some really high-profile cases. Caden Lidstrom and Gavin McKenna, Reshny, Verhoff. These are all like guys that have or are expected to be high-profile first-rounders. Some with some Flames ties, a lot with Alberta ties. And those are high profile, but in the instance of all those guys, you've got to want to go be a college student. It isn't just like, hey, I'm going to play hockey. It's like, well, okay, well, have we done SATs? Are your grades there? That I think that's a piece some people forget. There are still going to be elite 18, 19s in the CHL that college isn't for them, I suppose. So just to go scout a good player doesn't mean that's going to be a college player.
All day. A big part of it was, I think the older the player right now in the CHL, the less probably NCAA minded they were, because they got in for a reason. The NCAA was never an option. Mm-hmm. I think that will shift now. I think there's going to be some kids that keep a pretty good NCAA priority in their life as far as academics goes to make sure eligibility is of their opportunity. Even if you didn't want to go, it'd be crazy not to keep NCAA opportunity just as leverage along the way, I guess, would be an easy sight. And then I think doesn't matter if it's here, other places in the NCAA, like the numbers have shown, the timing has shown, the percentage of players playing in the NHL that have come through college doors is risen, and it's risen pretty rapidly on the idea of time, and time's on your side. Scheduling is probably on your side as far as training, development. I'd be the first one to say, I usually am the first one to say, I wish we played more games, but we don't. But what it does give you is more time as a human to be ready when they want to make that jump. And I do think for some of the young guys, if they've mastered maybe a level, CHL included, but then now you got to go face off against a 22, 23, 24-year-old, that's a different game. And if you're not, if you're not getting using up, and now if I'm a club in the NHL and I want to go place a player with us, why wouldn't you believe in the development path of what's here without having to pay that athlete, make that kind of on our burden, and then they take the fruits of the labor at some point.
Yeah, sure. Do you see the college game getting less 3-4 year program view versus like with the portal and with now major junior players being eligible, that it's maybe 1 and 2 year windows that you can't really go beyond because there's so much player movement? Like I think traditionally when, most of your life you'd recruit a kid and you'd probably have him 4 or 5 years. Maybe he needs an extra junior. Maybe he can play a 5th year. There's going to be a lot of kids that play at a program for 1 or 2 years, and that used to be the outlier with the likes of Jonathan Toews.
It was. I mean, and the guys that did were the guys that turned pro. They weren't leaving school to school or maybe tearing it up here and someone had a bigger paycheck to pay them somewhere else. That didn't exist. Now it does exist. I think there's probably, if you rewound that conversation, be like, okay, what got me there? What believed in me to be at this point in my life that I did develop, that I did take off, that now all of a sudden someone can come in and buy? I think that's going to come down to the people. I think you'll probably see less 4-year players. It's on a program, in my opinion, to probably find some balance. The balance that lies between, how many 1-year guys am I going to have? 2-year guys, 3-year guys, and can you get a fourth? And now guys are, especially in the States, probably accelerated in school along the way a little bit. Mm-hmm. That COVID opportunity to be an online student really, I think, sprungboard some kids to get ahead. So there's a lot of kids that are graduating in 3 years. They're, in our case here, our guys come here, they train in the summer, they take summer course. Because they take summer course, they're able to get a scholarship in the summertime. Well, all of a sudden now our job for me is to make them graduate and be a pro. So if we can get them inches closer to graduation, at the same time, miles ahead development-wise to become a pro, you're kind of tying two knots at one time.
What are you seeing as the potential fallout? Because I think it's easy for people to guess, but just your experiences with it. I mean, I've talked to a bunch of different people in different sort of facets of player development and that sort of junior to collegiate age level. And is it harder to get a commitment? Are you worried about someone reneging? Clearly players have a lot of options. That means agents have a lot of options and leverage. Like, are you weary of that a little, or is it just go back to that homework where you make sure this is the right person? And, if that's the case, you're less likely to see them say, well, actually I got this offer in this league for whatever.
I think you're seeing it happen daily. I mean, personal experiences here, we've had schools come in and take players that are going to enter here as freshmen. They offer them a bigger payday than probably what we can do. Maybe that's money to a family that's really important, which is that's who am I to say? How am I to control that part? Yeah. I'd go toe to toe with the idea like what they would get here day to day. That'd be a different story. But if you're talking like some wealth gain, that how do you argue? I think in some regard. But then on the other side, like, you're seeing now guys. You see the young man that's going to Michigan that just left late in Kitchener. I do think we'll find some players maybe that came down from the CHL this year because of just maybe the in-between time, that maybe find out the school wasn't cut out for them, even though they could do it. It's just like, that wasn't my plan. That's not the direction I was going. So we probably were a little more passive and just observation-wise, we want to make sure we're seeing what we saw and believed in what we believed in before we jumped in with both feet. Yeah. Now we have other recruits that have left spots that are now going to go play in the CHL, and good for them. We're excited about that opportunity for them to come back here.
Yeah, and I do wonder what the USHL's role in all this. We'll talk with a U Sports coach, and they're having to deal with, they used to get, anyone that wanted to go to college and played major, that's your pool. Well, that's changed all of a sudden. But the USHL is the flip side of that, where if you wanted to go to NCAA, that was an incredible option for American players. And now the CHL is like, yeah, you can still go to college. Come on up. Like, yep. Do you have any sort of, I don't want to say like bold proclamations, but like fears or thoughts or wonders about who the winners and losers are going to be in all this?
Yeah, I may be too early to say like a definitive moment of that, but I worked in the USHL for a very long time and did tons of pro where a lot of CHL kids came in. I don't know. I think it's a personal, like what's going to fit, what hat is going to fit them. I don't know if it's a one-stop shop. I don't believe that somebody, just because Joey did, is going to work perfect for Jimmy and vice versa, that direction. I do think there's probably going to be some adjustment period for both. Like, you used to walk into, if you ever went to, as a college guy, you went to a CHL game, you wore zero possible logo with a hat pulled down to your nose because you didn't really want someone to know that is, and now I think the biggest threat is, are you going to take them before they're draft eligible? Are you going to take them before their 19-year-old year? That's probably the alarming heads up on their side, would be my guess. Yeah.
Well, and there's finances at play on both sides. So for the teams in major junior, if your players select in the first round, there's significant remuneration, yep. Like they get some cash for that. And so if they're starting to lose guys in draft year, it's like, oof, all of a sudden you can be the big bad wolf. And then the flip side is, as you alluded to, this NIL money in the portal, now other schools can poach guys that normally they'd have to sit out to get a year eligibility back or whatever. Explain the NIL money thing to us, because it's totally foreign to Canadians. Like, how does it work? Who has it? How much can they allocate? And what are the sort of numbers that you're hearing for, elite hockey players that can sort of pick and choose a bit?
Well, I mean, you hear big numbers out of Penn State and some McKenna numbers that are large. If you opted into the house settlement, meaning you're going to go through the rules and regulations the NCAA is setting up for roster limitation and revenue sharing, your revenue of your athletic department, I believe, is just over $20 million. However, that gets split up to whatever sports are big on your campus. Like it could be larger for a school that's got a bigger football program. It might be better for a hockey school that's maybe a little more prominent than football. Maybe it's heavy basketball in that regard too. So that revenue share, it allows direct payment for the athlete from the school above and beyond. So to your point earlier, where a CHL kid was deemed ineligible, even though they made a couple $100 a month, that's gone out of the fact of now they can get that direct payment from the school. And now on the NIL side, there's something called NIL Go, which is a new mechanism where there was really no fair market value. You could say, like, Pins, you're going to get $100,000 to go sign autographs this afternoon. And there was no one that could really put a gate down on it. Now they're trying to, I think, put a little bit of rails on what is appetite for marketing, what is appetite for a signing bonus, what would be an appetite for a car deal. Like they're trying to put some rails on what's out there. And I from what I know and from others, it's a little bit blind experience because it's what someone might get okayed for, someone might not get okayed for as well. Elsewhere.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. I want to get to a couple of Flames questions in here, but a few more just on the eligibility change. I think when you look at the options available, you could certainly argue that the players are big winners. And I guess by virtue of being related to them, the agents and or family representatives are big winners here in the sense that you can be paid in your teens quite politely in theory to play hockey, where that before that just wasn't really on the table unless you're Austin Matthews, go to Switzerland when you have a late birthday and there's a million things that coincidentally fall right. Do you worry at all about, we're already talking about a new generation of athletes, and I know you sort of have a little more of an old school bend to the way you want to play the game and the characters that you really, enjoy watching play the game. If the littlest thing goes wrong, are you sort of worried that this is a slippery slope? And now that you're just like, we're going to the portal, I'm taking them back to major. Like you do want to see your athletes have to struggle through things and persevere rather than just throw their hands up and say, I'm out of here. Right.
I do. I think I don't like the fact that the eject button is right next to them. At least there was a mechanism in place. Like if you really wanted to leave, you had to sit. That was how the old rule was. If I wanted to go from Minnesota State to Duluth, sure, I could do that, but I had to sit a year in the interim. Mm-hmm. Maybe some things of that nature where you get one free portal to go, and if you shift another school, you get a penalty.
Okay,
that could happen. I don't know where that's all at, but there is probably some concern. I mean, contractually, if a pro player decides, like, what am I going to do? Knock on your door and say, Connie, I'm not going to come to work today because I want to get a trade. Well, there's some holdback, right? I mean, there's a little bit of there's a mechanism in place to take care of that. We don't have that, and I don't think it helps the athlete. I don't think it helps the mental fortitude that it takes to become a real long time pro. If your easiest thing is to hit see you later.
Yeah. Fair. I want to touch on a couple Flames while we got you. I remember when Marty Pospisil started making waves in the organization, and you're like, I love this kid. And, I'm trying to think, I don't want to, date you in terms of, you've coached a lot and seen a lot of kids, but you probably had that player coach relationship with hundreds, if not close to 1,000 players. And it sounds like Marty still cracks the top 5 fingers if you had to name them. What about Pospisil makes you smile?
Everything for me. I loved, when he came over to the States from home, I was the first story landed on, and I just thought the timing of his life to grow up and see and be away from home for the first time. I think just to have some adversity in his life in the hockey world. He had gone from home to Red Bull to us. Like it was a little bit of a journey in the middle, but just the growth. I think the way he treated adults, the way he was, I don't know. I always call him like dumb as a fox. Like he knew everything that was going on and acted like he knew nothing was going on, but he knew everything that was going to happen. I enjoyed that he wanted to get better. I loved the day that, you get inside the boards. There was a Martin Pospisil that wasn't like the guy that was in the street or the crowd with the kid that was helping him tie his shoes. That was a really cool point. I remember going through that with, at the time Jimmy Cummins would be around because he had the U.S. in the building. And I don't know how you could miss with a kid that was that determined daily to get better, and that had a chip on his shoulder because he wanted it really bad.
He's kind of a master of the dark arts too. I know you prefer those to not having them.
Yeah, we had some good moments. It would be like, not now, Poss, and then it was too late. I'm like, oh, that happened already. So there was a moment there where being suspended was like a pretty routine battle for him to get through.
Yeah, fair enough. Injuries have been a big thing too there. It feels like when he's available, you love him, but when you factor in suspensions and injuries, it's like, God, he's got to walk a fine line because the way he plays, guys are going to want to fight him. And the way he plays, he's going to probably have to talk to George Peros every other year. That does feel like the secret sauce if you can figure that out, hey?
It is. And it's maturity. I mean, you can see for me, I know we were going back and forth a little bit on Poss. Like, I think there's part of him that didn't want to lose a spot in the lineup. So I think maybe, man, I can't be suspended because someone else might come in and take my job. And now I think he's getting a little more footing that way where the old Marty might come back. The Marty party could happen for you guys up there. It's just that edge of his, though, is, I don't know. It's an old school trait that's not always. And for me, that working in the organization, that was a flame. That was like you were a flame when you dance right on that edge, and he does that.
Yeah, fair enough. Another guy I wanted to ask about, Sam Morton. He kind of was a unheralded spring free agent signing a couple springs ago, but looked pretty darn good. Not young, but you just basically said, I understand the odds are stacked again, but I'm just not betting against this guy.
I would bet on Morty every day. I think kind of back to Poss, like he's a very determined kid. I think they're way different animals as far as maybe IQ and slyness and age and maturity about their game. Like, Morty plays an older game already as a young player in the league and things, but he's just an absorbing information guy that can go apply it. And that's not every day for a lot of players can take things in, but they can't go make it go to work for himself. And same thing, you hope that he's durable enough because he's got enough edge on the end of his blade to his shoulders that are, it's an important part of his game, but he can't get stuck playing that way all the time.
Yeah, and you would have had him, 1 year, your first in Mankato?
Yeah, my first year here, he was our captain. There was a moment there maybe where when he stuck, when Mike Hastings left and went to Wisconsin, Morty stayed. And for me, I'm forever grateful for that move of his. What a class, mature side. But he'd gone through an injury, and that from where he was at that moment, he wasn't even a factor to be a pro at the end of that year. That's how far behind he was out of injury. Really? His self-determination for rehab and come back through. And he was player of the year in our league and signed with the Flames at the end of the year. And now, got a crack at it. I hope he can get his foot in the door and be healthy at the right time because there's been some unavailable times for him too.
Yeah, fair. And he plays center. That's going to help. He's
a center on both sides of the puck too. Both ends of the rink, both sides of the puck. I think he can play with good players. I think he can shut down good players. But there's enough transition in his game where he doesn't spend a lot of time in his end, and he knows how to play the game the right way.
Yeah, fair enough. Appreciate your time. How's the squad looking this year? You sent me some team building activities. So that means we're close.
We're getting close. The whites of their eyes are there, and we like our group. Last year we lost out in the NCAA tournament to Western in double overtime. We went on and won the whole thing, and we want to be back in that seat again with a different outcome. Yeah.
Well, best of luck this year. Always appreciate your insights. And I know for those closer to the Flames organization that saw you in the minors and then doing some scouting for the club, a big hello from everyone in Calgary, and hope to see you up here recruiting soon.
Yeah, meaningful time. That was a great chapter of my life with the Flames.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks, Vince.
You never need a lawyer until you need a lawyer, and then you need McLeod Law. They are the Calgary law firm. Calgarians, people that understand how our city works. So no matter what your legal needs are, it's simple. McLeod-law.com or hit socials at McLeod Law LLP. Peter Klein, you know him as the personal injury guy. Well, he's also your long-term disability insurance claim guy. Make sure you check in with him if you've got an issue collecting for the benefits you've paid for. Shane King, a partner in the Litigation and Dispute Resolution Group. Employee rights, if you've been terminated, make sure you're being treated as the law requires. Shane, always using practical and easy language, no legal mumbo jumbo. It's the Calgary law firm, and the only one you need to know whenever you need a lawyer, it's McLeod Law. Hey guys, it's Pinder. All throughout the year, Village Honda brings you the Pinder Report for the latest in what's happening in the sports world, and maybe the odd crocodile and snake. But today, we are at your dealership for life in the Northwest Auto Mall. Let's see what's happening at Village Honda. A reminder, if you're selling your vehicle, Village Honda, your dealership for life, wants to pay you. 24 hours, cash in your hand. You don't even have to buy a new one here, although I think you probably should. Village Honda, your dealership for life, online at villagehonda.com and in the Northwest Auto Mall. Well, it's summer, and that means it's air conditioner season. Yes, we don't need that in the winter, but it does get hot here in Calgary in the summer. And here's the deal from our good friends at Crystal Waters right now. 10% off a brand new air conditioner and a year of free preventive maintenance. Crystal Waters is your crystal clear choice for all things residential plumbing, heating, cooling services. We're talking 23 years of experience and over 30,000 projects completed. It's your clear choice for sure. Here's how you get a hold of them. 403-219-4100. Head to their website, crystalclearcalgary.com. Crystal Waters Plumbing and Heating is your crystal clear choice for home comfort. Back to the show. Time for part two of our development on player development and the changing landscape here in 2025. Super excited to welcome in Bert Gilling, the head coach of the Mount Royal University Cougars, coming off a great year. Bert, good to see you this summer. How are things going?
Good. You know, we have a pretty long off season from the end of the school year in April to now, and but the university's starting to fire up. We've been doing camps for a couple of weeks. Guys have all kind of checked in for the most part this week, getting a lot of testing done, and we kind of call it a soft start, like a slow start. We kind of build up once we get into September. So all's good on this end.
Excellent. I wanted to give you a chance to talk about your program. We allowed the same to Luke Strand from Minnesota State Mankato. We'll do the same for Fred Harbinson coming up later as well. But how long have you been in MRU? And I think we all want to build programs rather than just teams year over year. So what makes the MRU program special?
Yeah. I think that, I think part of the story is where I came from as well, right? So I came from my first coaching job when I got out of college. I was an NCAA guy at Duluth playing. And then I was an assistant coach at Bemidji State University, a Division I program in Minnesota. Came here in 2014, pursue a head coach opportunity. And what attracted me about Mount Royal at that time, they were 2 years into the university level. At that time, it was referred to as CIS. Now it's U Sport. That changed in 2016. But it's a chance, to build a program here. They're 2 years in, typical struggles of a program, trying to get a new standard of play, playing at the highest level of university hockey in Canada. And really, I just brought a Division I background and said, hey, I want to bring a Division I style program to a Canadian university. I think it'll work. Now you fast forward, this is going into year 11. Last year was year 10. And, there's a COVID year that we didn't play, unfortunately. So 9, 10, 11, I don't know. But, we had our best year last year. We finally broke through the Canada West semifinals, which got us to the championship and then got us to nationals in Ottawa last year. And we didn't win either of those, but we could have. I thought we showed very well. And, and on top of that, we really sell the player development part, Ryan, here. And, that you have to be able to get players, right? And it leads into a bigger discussion. But we're very fortunate here with the program that we've run. We've had the four of the last Canada West Players of the Year from Mount Royal University, and 3 out of the 4 National Players of the Year have come from Mount Royal University. And so we've been able to attract some good players. Again, what does the landscape look like in the future? We're figuring it out. But we're very, very proud of the program that we've built here. And, safe to say, we're a contender in Canada West and we're recognized nationally now. And we're pretty proud of that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I recall being at your game 3, which was an absolute thriller against what used to be the standard to measure against the Alberta Golden Bears, and you guys beating them to get into the final against U of S. It was pretty exciting to see, and I know how much work goes in behind the scenes. So, a tip of the cap to you for what you built there. Give us some of the names of the guys that you mentioned, the 4 players of the year consecutively, and where they've either gone on to or what they're still doing to help the program.
Yeah, well, we go back to kind of the first breakthrough, and it came right out of COVID. Was Nolan Yaremko. And Nolan, Flames fans will probably have maybe a bit of a recollection. He had a stint. He played all his junior hockey in Tri-City in the WHL, was a captain there. At the end of his junior career, spent a little time at the time with Stockton in the American League, and then took the school option, came to MRU the following year. So he was kind of the first. And then we had Riley Sawchuk. Riley Sawchuk was a top scoring 20-year-old in the WHL with the Oil Kings, Edmonton Oil Kings his last year. Was just dynamite. I mean, you could just tell he was a player, and was dynamite for us. I think it was his second or third year, really blew up. And he signed an AHL contract with Grand Rapids in the Red Wings organization, played in Finland and in their Liga last year.
Cool. Yeah.
And, I had a beer with him this summer and caught up, and great guy. And he's actually in Russia right now. He's trying the KHL for a year.
Wow.
So he's doing really well. We had Connor Bouchard, who very grateful that with all this turmoil, Connor's still in our program. He's going into his 4th year. And he, in perspective, he had maybe the biggest year of everybody. When he won Player of the Year a couple of years ago, he had 50 points in 28 games.
Jeez.
And ironically, that hadn't been done since the year 2000. One of the guys that did it in 2000 with the Golden Bears was Chris Knobloch.
There you go.
So a little word association, name association, but exceptional player. Excited for his future. Excited that he's back. He's a leader in our program. He's one of the best players in the country, certainly in Canada West, and he's a great representative of our program and the importance and the value of what we're doing at Mount Royal and in Canada West and youth sport. He's just embraced this experience. And then lastly, last year, breakthrough, huge season by Clay Hannes, defenseman. He had previously played as junior with the Portland Winterhawks, originally signed, I believe it was a 2-way AHL East Coast League contract with the Penguins organization. Took the school option at the Christmas time. He was a little banged up, didn't really work out, wanted to use the school option, came to us, and did, basically a year and a half. And then in his 3rd year, led the league in scoring as a defenseman, second in the country in scoring, had some offers and ended up going to the Allsvenskan League in Sweden this year, a place called Kalmar. And he's in their training camp right now. And I know I think he had an offer as well from the Dell in Germany, and, exceptional player. And, and again, for some of these guys, Nolan played in Germany last year in the Dell 2. He's in England right now. First week in the EIHL, gets Player of the Week. Nice. We got guys all over the place, and it's fun. It's fun to track them, and they're all still chasing it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And before we get into the topic of the day, it kind of CIS/U Sports, it always felt like you're getting these guys that took the major route, and unfortunately, for whatever reason, well, they're just not pursuing pro hockey anymore. And I feel like that mentality's changed big time. Maybe it's the proximity to your program and UFC and some of the other great programs in Canada West, but you're seeing a lot of guys coming out of U Sports and pursuing another chapter of their playing career for money in great leagues. And I don't know that it always felt that way to me. Maybe I'm off, though.
Yeah, you know what, Ryan? I think that's fair. I think that's a fair statement. And, I'll tell you from my perspective here, any player that I've talked to in, again, the 11 years I've been here in the recruiting process, if you don't have a desire to use this to move up into professional hockey, we didn't want you. We ran this and have run this like a D1 program. We've got strength conditioning coaches, we have nutritionists, we have periodized plans, we have off-season conditioning plans, we've got a high performance training varsity room for our student athletes, we've got mental skills people, you name it. We have more resources here at Mount Royal than I ever had at Bemidji State University or Duluth, yeah. Right? So it's like, but you got to be motivated and you got to see that this is a stepping stone. And I've always said university hockey, in the grand scheme of things, should be the bridge between junior and pro, right? Yeah. The ages match your development piece, socially, physically, mentally. University hockey is that bridge. And I think now that the NCAA is more involved, you're hearing more of that. But that's how we always sold it, right? There is this perception of, oh, that's where you go to die, the end of your career. No way. And, like I picked up on that with Alberta. Like we played U of A. It's like their players are going Europe all the time, right? Sure. And it's like our league has gotten better in my 10 years here. Like I don't know if Canada West has ever been better than it's been the last 5 years. Deep and talented and well coached. It's been exceptional hockey.
Well, and then you add in, the wrinkle that the whole hockey world's watching and trying to figure out of the last 12 months or so, when it was rumors of major junior players being eligible for NCAA, and then the fallout of it once it became a thing. We saw commitments a few years out, and now finally we're seeing major junior players even leaving well before their time's up of their junior careers to jump at the opportunity to play NCAA. How has it affected your recruiting process, and how much uncertainty was there over the last year or so when you are trying to bring in players and they're saying, well, hang on now, there might be a door open that wasn't an option for me just a year ago?
Yeah, no, exactly right. And we, generally our recruiting, and I say our in terms of like Canada West and U Sport generally, you do stuff during the year, right? You're talking to kids. You'd love to get commitments throughout the season, but a lot of stuff happens kind of after our season. Right. It was a late recruiting process, with regards to, for us here in Western Canada, the WHL, they kind of control when and who we can talk to from their league. Basically, they're graduating 20-year-old players, and we were only allowed to talk to them in little pockets in their last year. Like they controlled all that. So, the recruiting timelines haven't changed much, Ryan, for us in U Sport. It's just the demographics have really changed. And I think I'm just throwing loose numbers out there that we track this stuff pretty closely. But on any given year, there's 66 graduating players from the WHL. Makes sense, right? Three each, 22 teams.
Sure.
So approximately you start with that. There's some European guys in there that are going back to Europe. There might be a couple of guys get entry-level contracts. So that, that number gets maybe 60, 55. Then it gets down to, there's always a handful of guys that debate, well, school or minor pro. Am I into school or do I want to go minor pro? Those guys usually end up in the East Coast League. Then you're getting down into the 40s, maybe the high 30s in terms of players left. Those are generally the guys that have filled our rosters in
Sure.
U Sport. And for a little perspective, when the rule changed in November, and then looking at it now, there's only a handful of those guys at all coming to U Sport this fall. I think like 60 to 70% of those kids are all committed to NCAA schools this fall.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's a big difference. Now, I've made this point a few times, and I think it's an important one. They aren't creating new jobs in the NCAA, and so players that would have been participating, in an NCAA roster might not be on one anymore, and guys that were going to go junior A to NCAA, well, their job might have been taken from a guy that came from major. So, there isn't this exodus of players so much. It's just those 60 players you're noting. It's a lot of those guys that you kind of have to just change your recruiting. It's not like there's less players to look at. It's just a different pot, isn't it?
Yeah. And I told people, I think I told you earlier, Ryan, when we were just shooting the breeze over at the rink, but the big concern for me would be if all of a sudden we hear in the NCAA that 10 new universities are starting D1 hockey this year. Right. Because then it's like, okay, now it's starting to get thin, right? That player pool starts to get thin. I kind of look at it right now. It's like a shuffling of the deck. right? Because, okay, well, what's happening? You're again, the NCAA came in, a lot of the mid-majors scooped up all the 20-year-olds right away. Now the big boys, the big boys are starting to grab those younger guys. That's generally always been the pattern. Like you've seen all this in the USHL play out for the last decade, right?
Sure.
Same thing's happening up here. So you're right. There's an influx of Canadian kids, CHL kids going to NCAA schools, but the players that have been playing in the NCAA that might be getting pushed out or pushed down, like we are probably going to have access to that. We have a transfer this year from North Dakota, right? And then in the CHL, we're probably going to be taking less kids directly from the CHL. But I think with the CHL maybe bringing in more internationals, more American kids I'm seeing, especially out here in the WHL.
Sure.
It might be harder for some of the depth players traditionally in the WHL to hang on to their jobs. Where are they going to be as 19 and 20-year-olds? Well, they're probably going to be in junior A hockey.
Yeah. So
they might, instead of saying, okay, they're coming from the WHL, it might just be saying, okay, they're coming from the CHL, but those are the guys, maybe some of them we'd have anyways, Ryan. Or with the NCAA taking less junior A kids, right? It's just shuffling. I look at it like shuffling the deck. I still think there's possibility that we're going to get some pretty good players here. Indirectly, I think the transfer portal is going to play a big role for what we're going to do going forward as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating, and no one has to know the answer or see the future, but you're doing your best to try to, see it before maybe your counterparts do, so you have an edge, or at least not get stuck behind in terms of recruiting. How tough has it been for the players in a sense? Because, they've got agents or family representatives, and, a player that you might be talking with a pro team, and that's a normal conversation. But they might also be chatting with NCAA, and, it's like, I don't know if going to the highest bidder is the right terminology, but this could be complex and a lot of back and forth, probably more than you're used to.
It makes your head spin, man. I mean, I think it was just this morning, our staff, I've got a good staff here and of part-time guys, and they're into it and they do a good job, and staying on top of what's going on in the hockey world. And I mean, it's chaos out there, right? So, I get a text sitting there saying, oh yeah, okay, well, major junior guy apparently had committed to an NCAA school. Not sure if he's reporting or not reporting or having second thoughts. And then, there was a communication either from him or from us, I don't know. And then, the question was like, what's going on? And the response from the player was, what can you give me? What's your best offer? And it's funny, isn't it? Like, I start laughing, like, this is the world we're in. Everything's transactional, right? Hey, what can you give me? How much money am I going to make? And it's like, it's university, man. Like,
we give you help get your education paid for. It's probably what we can do for you.
It's an investment in your future, right? Yeah. Like, and if you're, if you can come out of university and not have debt or student loans, like the majority of students at the university, like you're in pretty good shape to start off your professional life, right?
Yeah,
that's the point, and it's just amazing. So back to talking about the players, like it was really interesting last year because we were having guys reached out to by NCAA schools, right? And season, agents are representing our players. Well, they're in the middle, so they're talking to NCAA schools, trying to find opportunities for the guys who are on my team, right? And it's just like, it was really hard. There's guys, and you've probably seen a little bit of it. I think there's going to be close to 15 guys from Canada West. We're a 9-team conference.
Wow.
I think there's going to be close to 15 guys that played in our conference last year that are going to be on rosters of NCAA programs this fall.
Fast.
So,
yeah.
And so you have that mentality again from the kids' perspective of, especially in this generation, well, where's he going? Where's he going? Should I be doing that? Am I missing out? Right? Like that FOMO thing, fear of missing out. Like they should start doing studies up here with our junior hockey players, because it's rampant
Yeah.
Am I missing out on something? Like everybody's going. That means our league's not going to be very good, or our team's not going to be very good. He's going over there. Should I go over there? What should I do? And it's just, I do see a lot of poor decisions being made in terms of not having a process, right? And I think this year, Ryan, is transactionally in terms of players going here, coming back, going there, coming back to junior, going to U Sport, going to the NCAA, going to the minor pro. I think it's going to be nuts this fall.
Yeah.
Personally.
And you know what? It's a new universe, so people are going to figure out what works and what doesn't. And there are options that are in front of players that haven't been before. And generally speaking, I think it's great for players to have options. We sort of seen it almost like a system that you can't break out of. If you sign a contract when you're 14, you might make a couple $100 a month, and then you got 1 year to try to make it as a pro, or your scholarship evaporates. And then, when you're 19, you're not allowed to go to the A. And, it's been very restrictive on players. And all of a sudden they've got a plethora of options in front of them. I would understand the uncertainty, but the flip side is, do these players now have the wherewithal to persevere and get through maybe a tough interaction with a coach, or the first disappointment of maybe not, being a healthy scratch their first week of the university season? Or is it going to be the agent's call, like, we'll move them to the other league? Like I asked Luke Strand about this in Mankato, and I know you guys are both sort of more of the old school, where the world you grew up in, if you had a problem with the coach, you better sort it out, because that's where you were playing. But all these options sound great, but it also can lead to the easy way out a lot for players, I'd suggest.
It's a great point, Ryan. Well said. I mean, I think just from a, I hate to say a traditional coach. I mean, that's what coaching is at the university level, right? Like you bring them in, and, for Luke, I've known Luke for a long time. Great guy, great coach, right? There's a lot of guys that I still talk to in the NCAA, and they're struggling with this a little bit from the standpoint of it's just becoming like minor pro hockey. I had one NCAA coach sit there and say, geez, I'm like, wow, you're bringing in a lot of guys. And he was just like, I just got to look at it now that this isn't your traditional university experience. We've got 26 free agents. Yeah. Like any given year, you have no idea who's going in the portal, who might be leaving at Christmas time, who's coming. There, he's just like, I want to win, and I'm just treating it like I got 26 free agents every year. I don't know if that's good. And, Ryan, you're right. Like, I've used the term soft landing. Like the old saying, like, be where your boots are and earn it. Yeah. No one's being told that anymore.
Well, right? and if you are, you hope that the person you have is mature enough to say, you know what, there's some wisdom in that, versus here's the agent calling to say we're going to the other route. Hey, I appreciate your perspective on this, Bert. Wish you all the best in the upcoming season. How much do the fellas look forward to that Crowchild Classic that you guys and the Dinos have? I know it's become a real flagship event for youth sports across the country, not just for hockey. And what has it meant for your program, Canada West, and youth sports hockey?
Well, honestly, I wish it was on TV, Ryan. I mean,
should be, yeah.
Like, and again, not going too far down that rabbit hole, but like, that's as good of atmosphere as anybody's going to ever experience in the NCAA.
Yeah.
Right. You can go to the Engelstead Arena in North Dakota. You can go to Mariucci in Minnesota. You can go to the Kohl Center in Wisconsin. There's going to be 10, 11, 12,000 people there. And the student sections are fun, right? In the center ice, you got the band playing.
Yeah.
That Saddle Dome game, there's 13,000 people in there. There's 6,000 Dino fans. There's 6,000 Cougar student. And these are student bodies, faculty. Yeah. And they let loose, man. like picture, for the NCAA fans, picture the Engelstead Arena, but 3/4 of the building are actual students.
Yeah.
Right. That's what the Saddle Dome environment is. I've been in college hockey for 25 years. That Saddle Dome game is an electric, one of the, if not the best environment for college sports that I've ever been a part of. It is amazing. I go home at night and my ears are ringing, right? We're grateful for the Flames Foundation and the Flames people for giving us that opportunity for our men's and women's program. And for anybody out there listening, if you want to have fun and just a charged up, crazy environment, slip on out for that one. It's for a good cause too.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's now on the sports calendar for me in this city. You got all these great things. You got Stampedes, like, you've got the Labor Day Classic for the Stamps, and Calgary's playing forwards. That's a big one. And there's this and that and all these different things. But It's there now. It's like one of those, like, you're looking for fun, this is the thing to do, and it's great to shed a lot more attention on your league, which has got such high quality players and deserves more attention than it normally gets. Thanks for your time. Best of luck this season. We'll see you around the rink.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Take care.
Buddies, you know what Barn Burner is a presentation of Bet365, best gaming partner in the whole wide world. Get that app in your phone. If you haven't got an account yet, set it up. Use the code NATION when you sign up. Be worth your while, and then get in on it. They got game props, player props, totals. What sport do you want? What are you looking for? It's all there. Get in the app, get in the game. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, official partner of Barn Burner.
Super proud to have partnered with Origin Brewing, who make R2 delicious beers. Barn Burner Blonde, great in the summer, crushable beer. Favorite for everyone. Crowd pleaser to be sure. And if you like something a little hoppier, how about the Afterburner Pale Ale? They've also got their summer drinks going, that hard iced tea, hard seltzers. They've got the Gosas, famous beers they've been making for a long time, homegrown lager. They've got the Rockyford Raspberry, all kinds of incredible beers. Check it all out at originbrewing.ca, and you can stop in at their 2 locations, 60 Spruce Park Drive in Strathmore, and their new location in Calgary, the OC, Origin Calgary. You can find it at 943 28th Street Northeast. They've also opened O-Dogs, a new menu there for you to get your hot dog on. Chili, poutine, however you like your dog, they got it at O-Dogs. Check out Origin at your local liquor store or the Strathmore and Calgary locations.
There's a saying, it isn't bragging if it's true. So for Bonton Meat Market, when they say 24 consecutive years, Southern Alberta's Consumer's Choice Award winner for best meat and deli, it's not bragging if it's true. And it's true. Bonton Meat Market, 28 Crowfoot Circle in the Northwest. Was talking with Greg Keller the other day, and they are just pumping out the top quality. It's the standard is so high for what passes through that whether it's the meat or the salads, Greg Keller has that place humming. And if it's not AAA Alberta beef, if it's not the best free range chicken and all that, it doesn't get in there. And that makes things a little bit tough. Maybe if you're a supplier, so you better be the best, because if it's at Bonton, people know it's the best. And that's why we go there. And that's why for 24 straight years, they're that Consumer's Choice Award winner. Life is too short to eat bad meat. I say it all the time. 104 years under their belt. They're doing something right. They're doing it all right. It's Bonton Meat Market. They're our favorites. It's not even close. They'll be your favorites too. It's the summertime. Get something on your grill. Get some good Bonton on your grill. No regrets. 28 Crowfoot Circle in the Northwest.
And we're back with more Barn Burner. Our final guest today is the head coach, the GM, the president of the Penticton Vees, Fred Harbinson, who has had a busy year. Fred, thanks for joining us. If we had chatted 6 months ago, you'd be the head coach of a BCHL club. It will be a WHL league you play in this year. How chaotic has the last year been? Never mind the eligibility, just going from one league to another.
Yeah, probably, like you said, since November, it's been a whirlwind would be an understatement probably. And, me and Graham Fraser, our owner, have kind of talked about it plenty of times, just that, in a lot of these kind of situations, you'd probably have a couple of years to do what we've done to get ready. And we did it in 4 or 5 months. So it's exciting times here, but it was wild, especially as we were still playing last year and with all the changes going on but you kind of adapt or die, right? So we found a way to adapt, and we made a decision to move to this new league, great league, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, fair enough. And again, your job for the prior decade plus was to help prepare junior hockey players for college. You could argue that hasn't changed at all, but I'm sure there's lots of work that's changed.
Yeah. It's obviously a little different animal now. Like a lot of people have their different opinions of what's going on right now. I think my job for the last 18 years here in Penticton probably wasn't even really to develop players for college. It was just developing young men to be, good citizens, good hockey players, whatever that path was going to be. Right. And so, in the Western Hockey League, it's a long standing tradition of developing players for professional hockey, and I don't think anything's going to change with that. They're now the fact that a player can still utilize going to college before maybe that step. I mean, that's going to happen, and but our mandate here is not going to change. Like it's going to be the same. That I've got players that are going to be 16 to 20 years old, very impressionable parts of their time in their life. Their parents are handing them over to us, so to speak, and it's our job to make sure that we're instilling the right discipline and morals and accountability, and not just in hockey, but in their everyday parts of their life, and that's going to continue with us going to the Western League.
Tell us a bit about the program. You guys are a BCHL powerhouse.
Yeah.
That league evolved and separated away from Hockey Canada, and now into the WHL. But it's the same paint on the walls. It's a lot of the same staff, and to your point, a lot of the same ideals and virtues that you're carrying forward.
Yeah, like when I came here in 07, 08, like timing was really good. Like, I think in anything in life, your timing is really critical. And so it had been 3 years prior. There was an ownership group that bought the team, brought back the Vees name. It had changed a couple times with the Knights in the 80s and Panthers. And but anybody that's been around knows that there's a lot of history and tradition that goes with this program that goes back to being a senior team in the 50s that won the world championship in 55. And then from 61 on till last year, we're in the BC Hockey League. And as you said, a powerhouse, some big names in Paul Correa, Brendan Morrison, Brett Hull, and the list goes on and on and on. So when I got here in 07, 08, it was kind of, we were in the final year playing in the old Memorial Arena. The new building that we have today that's state of the art was just getting in the process of getting built. And, we won a championship my first year in 07, 08, which they hadn't won since 86. So it was kind of revitalized, it was kind of an exciting time. And then the next year you move into the new building and you still had some ups and downs those first few years. And it was probably, I always say kind of 2011, 12, when we had Troy Stetcher, Mikey Riley, some of these other guys. And we had this an insane lineup of where we broke all these records. From that point on, I think our program really took off, and it kind of turned into what it was today, and where we were moving, basically 100% of our lineup was going on to college. We were getting a lot of NHL draft picks, big attendance, 3,000 fans a game, kind of everything was kind of magnified over the last handful of years. And then all of a sudden last season, in November, this big, huge rule change. And, to really look back, I was coaching at St. Cloud State before I came here, and 20 some years ago, they were talking about, the potential that, the CHL players would get eligibility way back then, and it just never happened. And then bang, one November day, it happens. And now we're staring at a situation where, as I just kind of laid out, these big time players were in Penticton well before I got here. And now we're saying, I'm looking at our owner, Graham Fraser, and saying, like, I'm a pretty good recruiter, but what I was selling is gone now. We were getting the top players that wanted to go the college route. Now there's no reason for them to come this way because they can still get there going through the CHL. So what are we going to do? And we thought, well, let's join. Let's try to see if we can join the CHL.
Yeah, it's incredible, how dramatic that changes to a junior A recruiter because, you're selling, keep your eligibility and play a great level of hockey. And now the one league that arguably is the best developmental league in the world in the CHL says, oh, we can do that too. So I imagine that you noted it had something to do with the decision. And how's the transition been so far? You obviously would have had rostered players that had their WHL rights held elsewhere. You've had an expansion draft, a real draft, and now you got to recruit for the first year of a junior league, but not the one you were in last year. Yeah, no, it was interesting because, like I said, as we were playing last year, everything was starting to leak out. And, you being in the media probably know better than anybody, like there was more being said that, like, at the same time of trying to get in the Western League, we had to change our lease with the city if it was going to happen. It wouldn't work. Our BCHL lease wouldn't work. So in some breaths, we're telling the city that we're further ahead with the Western League to try to get our lease, and then times we're trying to tell the Western League we're probably further ahead with the city to try to get in the league. And
so there was a lot of stressful days and nights and trying to put it all together. And then as things are leaking out, even maybe ahead of where things really were, you had to worry about what our players were thinking, because some of them from Ontario and whatnot knew that, well, if that means I'm not going to be back here next year. And to their players' credit, they did an outstanding job of kind of staying in the moment and making sure that it didn't affect too much. And there were some guys, like you said, that had Western League rights with other teams, and we were able to acquire every single one except for one. With Max Heisey, the PA just wouldn't work with us, and understandably why. He's a heck of a player, and so he's going to be going and playing in PA this year. Some of the other guys, we were able to list a couple guys that weren't on teams' lists, and when it started leaking out, teams were trying to list our guys, and we had the one area that we were protected is we had put a stipulation that our players wouldn't be allowed to be listed during a certain time, so we kind of got covered there. The expansion process was interesting to say the least. Again, very happy to be in the league and very appreciative of all the members, and we want to be great members. But the truth of the matter is, I don't think the expansion process was that favorable for us, and probably part of that was, maybe what we've done in the past hurt us. They weren't going to make it too easy on us, and that being said, I think we've done a good job of managing through it, getting some good players. We've had to make some, traded some picks away to be very competitive. I think we're going to be very competitive this year, which I think was important. Penticton well, and what they're used to here isn't going to be what they get, but we couldn't go from, winning 40 some games a year to, maybe 5 wins this year or something. So I think we're going to be, somewhere, like I said, maybe not in the middle, but we're going to be in a situation where we're very competitive. We're going to be, players are very excited about wanting to come and play in Penticton, and that'll go a long ways.
So if now as a GM and head coach of a major junior team, when you draft a player, and let's say they show up for their 16-year-old year, I think it would probably be a little naive to just think, oh, well, this guy's going to be here till he's 20. And if you're doing a real good job of developing the guy, he might be in the NHL at 19. You never know. Right. But I mean, how do you now view your window of a star player in major junior because of the different options that they're facing?
Well, you nailed it. Like for me, maybe I don't have to change my mindset that much, because when I was in the BC Hockey League, there was a certain way that players would filter through our system, right? Through our program. And, I think the one thing here now is you're right. Like if we do a good job and make it I think one of the things we've done a really good job over the years is, people talk about the winning, but I think we've done a good job of marrying the personal development of the player along with winning. And we've got a lot of tools, and that goes back to our owner again, giving me the ability to have a big staff. So we've always had, when you talk about development pieces, we've always had, a full-time strength coach. We've got, a big medical staff. We've got a power skating coach. We've got a skills coach. Like, we put a lot of time and effort into the personal development of a player. So what we're hoping is that if we continue to do a good job getting players drafted and we do a good job of developing them, that it has to be something pretty special for them to leave here to go off to college. It better be, and it's hard when you're going against the Michigans or the Michigan States or the North Dakota, because the resources they have. But at the same time, if you put a player in a position where, for instance, there's, Brooks DeMars, he's an 09 player with us. I just found out yesterday that he's committing to University of North Dakota. Now, in my mind, we're going to have him hopefully for 3 years, where in the past you would have said probably 4. Okay. Now, if he does come back the 4th year, then great. If not, if it's only 3, then the way the new scholarship, the Western Hockey League development model is that, now we would be off the hook for paying his development money. Sure. And so the scholarship money. So, then you save money there. So, I mean, the bottom line is just being prepared. Like, you don't want to get caught with your pants down, so to speak, where, and no matter what you do, you're always going to have some unseen circumstances that come out. Like, one of the things I'll point to, like the people that want to go on Twitter and say, oh, the CHL is going to be in big trouble, they're dead. Like, I coached in college when hardly any players ever left early.
Yeah.
They, 1 in a million, 1 in 100 would leave before their 4th year. And then all of a sudden that changed. Well, it didn't kill college hockey. They evolved and they found a way to change. It's the same right now. We're still going to get the players. The best players in the world now are going to want to still come to the CHL. And I would argue that the net gain is better right now. Like, there are going to be players, like the player I just used an example of, Brooks DeMars. He would have never came to the Western Hockey League. He's a kid that wanted to probably go college. So now he would have went to the USHL or maybe Penticton as a BCHL team if the rules didn't change, and he would have never came. Now that kid's coming to the league. Now, if we do a good job and maybe he gets drafted and signs, he never ends up at North Dakota. I don't know. But that player's in the league now. So instead of focusing on I think the Western League probably lost 12 really high-end players, but how many have they gained this year that would have been earmarked for college? That's the question.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you're right. Like, Gavin McKenna's a big name. Caden Lidstrom was drafted 4th overall. Verhoff's a guy that's going to go very high next year's draft, and that's all high profile.
Right.
But what Major Junior used to have to compete with were these other leagues, like where you were working in the BC League and the USHL, that would allow a player to keep its eligibility for college. So I think it's a sound argument to say that if you look at the 16 to 18-year-old group, the league's better. Now, the 1920s is a different story, but I mean, you're a developmental league, and the guys that are still playing junior at that age, there's a lot of the biggest stars in the game are that group.
For sure. And I think where, like, the ones that hurt are the McKennas and Verhoff, because on top of it, because of the they haven't been drafted yet. So now they're getting drafted as college players instead of a Medicine Hat Tiger or a Victoria Royal.
Sure.
And there's a lot of money that goes involved in that too, right? When as far as development money. So there's a piece of the puzzle there that hurts. But again, those are unicorn. Like, Gavin McKenna still played 3 years in the Western Hockey League.
It's a late birthday, right?
He's late birthday. So that happens once in a while. For instance, with Verhoff, like, those players that leave before they're, that elevate their schooling and get their graduation date early. I mean, at North Dakota, you know who the last person was to do it? Jonathan Toews. Yeah, that's a long time ago. So this is not, and I would take, let's say that rule changed a year or two ago. Celebrini probably would have played in the Western Hockey League.
That's fair. A guy that wasn't in the league.
Owen Powers wouldn't have played in the USHL. He would have played in the OHL. Like, you could start going back. So moving forward, again, everybody's focusing on these couple guys that are leaving, and sure, it's something that we're going to have to change the way we do business or prepare. Maybe, maybe you're going to be careful. Like, when I was in Penticton, I wasn't focusing 3 years down the road with my roster. It was 1 to 2 year, kind of 2 year windows. And then you kind of go from there. Maybe there's going to have to be a little bit of that, moving forward.
And it sounds like the college games moved to that already. We'll take a guy for a year. Whereas, as you noted, when you started coaching, it was you get 4 with everyone and maybe 5.
Well,
it's just a changing landscape.
Absolutely. And one of the big things for that is that portal. The reason they've had to go, hey, we'll take someone for 1 or 2 is because the portal changes things dramatically, things dramatically for them. Right. So again, evolve with it, trying to find a way to work with it. And for us, I guess, again, another advantage for us here in Penticton is, our number one mandate, like I said, is going to be to develop good people. And then the next thing is our goal now is to try to get them ready for pro hockey. Our goal isn't going to be trying to get them ready for college. Now, if we don't get them to pro hockey right away, then at least now there's an opportunity for them to go to the NCAA. Our fans here aren't going to freak out if all of a sudden a player leaves after 3 years to the University of North Dakota, because it's been going on since 1961. Right. Like, they're used to that, right? So we don't have to sell that as part of the, the new change, where maybe some of the other programs have to.
I do. While we've got you, want to ask you about a Flames prospect coming off a really good year, and a guy I believe you watched 3 seasons ago, Idar Suniev, who was at UMass last year and scored a ton of goals. He scored a ton of goals for you, and the Flames are hoping he'll score a ton of goals, at least for their American League affiliate, the Wranglers, this year. Yeah. What was, because I recall that sort of being like late COVID, and it was a weird spot for players trying to find places to play in certain instances. How did you get Idar? What was he like? And what do you expect or project him to do moving forward into the pro ranks?
Yeah, that one was a real, like, we've had some different situations go on here. And that was an odd one because what happened was we were, kind of coming off COVID there. And in Ontario, they were still having some issues where, he was at St. Andrews College and they were having some issues about where, some of the restrictions that were going on. And this is like the 21-22 season, right? So then we get we've had a lot of St. Andrews players. So we get a call from David Manning saying, like, we're going to have to go into the U.S. and do some training down there. This player here doesn't have a visa to the U.S. Can he come and skate with you guys? And, and Steve Colley, as you know, Steve, like he's worked for me for years. And when I brought Sunya's name up to Steve, he's like, well, he's their best player. He was like, and I'm like, Steve, don't get excited. Like, there's no way we're going to be able to get he's a Russian player. Like, we're not going to be able to get him eligible for junior A. It's just not going to happen. So we get him out here to practice with us. And then we start digging into some different things and seeing if there's a way to make it happen. Long story short, somehow we were able to get him, Canadian visa. There was a lengthy process. His mom had to come over here, move over here, and we were able to get him eligible for the second half of the season that year. And I think it was like 3 weeks after we got him eligible, then the war broke out. So that was I think there's no chance if so then the war broke out and put him it was a kind of an odd situation that was going on. And to Idar's credit, that first year, I don't think he knew where his own end was. And, and so we had to design drills where we were spray painting different quadrants in the ice of where he needed to be. But you could always see that he had this offensive gift. And you could also see that he wanted to learn. He was in here wanting to do extra video. He very serious. I think I've talked to you in the past that, every morning he'd show up here, he'd be doing a routine that you were thinking you'd be getting ready for a game 7. And then we're getting ready for a regular practice. As that season went on, had a pretty good finish. We get in the playoffs and he broke his finger in the second round and we lost him for the rest of the playoffs. But he had a pretty, successful start. I said, that kid, you can tell that I just knew, you could just see that he was, the light bulb was going off. And the next year when he came in, it was like, he just took off. Like, he scored 45 goals for us. Our power play was lethal. You had Bradley Nadeau on one flank, him on the other. Bradley scored 32 goals, I think, in the AHL last year as a 19-year-old. So, they didn't play on the same line together, but power play wise, it was lethal. But he became a very good two-way player. And I'll be honest, in the finals, so we won the championship his first year. He was out, but then the second year we went back to back, and he was one of our best players in the finals. Like, he went from a guy that you were worried about if you were defending a lead to the point where he's blocking shots in the final. And, he just wants to be a hockey player so bad, he'll do whatever it takes to get there.
That's great stuff. Appreciate it. Best of luck in your first year in the Western League. I know this is exciting, and I've heard from people around the hockey community, it sounds like you've done a pretty good job. This isn't going to be a necessarily a traditional expansion season for you. So all the best. We'll be following and can't wait to see you pass through the Saddle Dome.
I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.
Big thank you to Luke Strand, Bert Gilling, as well as Fred Harbinson. Changing the landscape for developing junior hockey players, collegiate players. Crazy times. No one knows exactly what is going to happen, but we hope this show gave you some insights on what these different levels of hockey players have options for and that coaches are operating in, what they're seeing, what's happening here in the first year of a seismic shift in how hockey players are reaching their ways to the professional ranks. Thanks for watching. See you, buddies.